Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be focusing on the huge changes to the Mac-10 as a result of the Season 2 update. In case you guys didn't know, there was a bunch of different little micro changes that happened in the descriptions as well as what the attachments actually do that make huge changes to which attachments you should be using on your Mac-10. If you do enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Just a heads up, I will be doing a limited time merch drop on March 10th, the anniversary of Warzone, as well as my individual birthday. So if you're looking to go ahead and check it out, go ahead and make sure you follow me on Twitter, where I'm going to be announcing that. I also have a link in the descriptions around that time. So let's go ahead and go through each attachment as a whole and focus on different categories. The first thing we'll go ahead and take a look at is recoil. So these are pretty much the recoil patterns for the Mac-10. You can kind of see the base version up here: muzzle brake, flash guard, infantry compensator, SOCOM eliminator, task force, SOCOM, and the SFOD, a speed grip. We have the agency suppressor, task force, foregrip, field agent, and then the SFOD speed grip, as well as just the SOCOM and the SFOD with a different barrel than the task force. So it looks a little bit clustered on here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove some of the different things. So there we go. It should be a little bit easier to read. What you can see here is that the muzzle brake helps horizontal, not as much vertical. One of the weird things with the Mac-10 is I did several different recoil patterns, and it can kind of change quite a bit because it does have a lot of bounce. So sometimes it'll be a little bit taller, less horizontal. Sometimes it'll have more horizontal, less vertical. But for the most part, it kind of stays within a certain bounds. And as a result of that, you do get a little bit of inconsistent or wonky recoil patterns. But one of the things that you do notice is there's a lot of consistency with this SFOD speed grip, as well as the SOCOM eliminator at helping the vertical. Out of all these different ones, it helped the vertical the most. The SFOD speed grip helps the horizontal, as well as the field agent grip the most, but not as much having issues with the vertical. So what I was able to do is kind of figure that part out, and then I went to go ahead and test some of the other ones with the task force because that was the most popular barrel before. We'll go ahead and kind of talk about why you probably shouldn't be using that one anymore in any of your class setups. And then we have the SOCOM with the SFOD with pretty much any other barrel that you want. And you can see that this one gives you the best recoil reduction. It does tighten it up on the horizontal and tighten it up on the vertical. Out of pretty much all of them, that's the best one there. But obviously there might be other combinations that work out just a little bit better with the field agent, but obviously I can't have 42 different combinations on the screen. So that's just kind of what I would recommend for just focusing on recoil control. Now we'll go ahead and talk about some of the other variables that matter for the individual weapons. So there were actually a lot of changes when it comes to specific attachments on the Mac-10 from Season 1 up into Season 2 with that 1.32 update. I know it's a lot of numbers on screen, but here's pretty much the attachments on the left. And then you can see how long it takes a bullet to travel that distance. Obviously, you're not going to be shooting people at 500 meters. You're going to be shooting them up to about 40 meters, 35 meters, maybe tops. But in general, most people are going to use this weapon between about 10 meters all the way up to about 20. That's kind of be the vast majority of your gunfights. And then everything else, you're probably going to use a rifle, or if you're using a sniper support, you might want to balance that out. But they went and adjusted pretty much a lot of the values right here. You can see there's no change for these. So these are still positive. Right here, there is a slight difference, but that's within a margin of error. It could be 1 frame difference. And at the end of the day, it ends up still being pretty much the same bullet velocity. So I didn't change it there. We got a nerf to the reinforced heavy. Before, this was giving you about 700 meters per second, which gets it kind of a little bit more into rifle range, like a strong rifle range without having any kind of bullet velocity attachments. And the importance of bullet velocity is it just makes your bullets and your hit reg feel a little bit more like hit scan. Obviously, once you get into the 1,000 range, that's kind of would be ideal, but you're not going to get that with an SMG. And luckily, most of your engagements are for close range engagements. The Ranger, obviously, that one's only for bullet velocity. It also got a nerf. So instead of having close to 700, it's closer to 600, which is still the most currently, but it's not going to give you any of the additional range that some of these other ones might give you. And range could be particularly important when you get down to the nitty gritty of how you want to use the weapon. On top of that, the rifle, there's no change, so it's not helping at all for bullet velocity. Task force, you can see it got a huge nerf. It was giving you 620 bullet velocity before. Now it's only 505, which is still pretty reasonable, but 45% improvement there. And so that was considerable nerf. And then pretty much all the other barrels, agency suppressor, sound suppressor, None of those are actually change it. I tried the SOF target and the Ember sighting just in case there was some kind of funkiness going on, because they did make it so that those ones actually help your range, which you'll see in a quick second. So we'll go ahead and continue scrolling down. And you can see we're kind of going through certain attachments, certain stats, pretty straightforward here. Then we got the other attachment, and this is specifically for range. This is the Season 1 range, and this is the Season 2 range as of today, testing this video. So you can see this one, no change, no change. The agency suppressor, obviously it's working against you, but it does nerf your range by a lot. Pretty much from 17 meters where it was before, or even at 15.5 like it is by default, it's nerfing that range to 12 meters, which that carries over to the other stuff by 23%. Huge drop there. They buffed the cavalry barrel, so it's going to get you up to 18.5%, and this one actually gets you the best range. And it's nowhere close to what we were getting with the task force, which you can see is 22.5. So that's why the Mac-10 just doesn't feel like it hits quite as good as it before, because you're literally adding on shots to kill at all these different various ranges where you didn't have to worry about it before. Now it's actually impacting all of those gunfights. So if you're just looking for range, cavalry looks like the way to go. Gives you about a 20% increase. They buffed the reinforced heavy, gives you about 16.5, which that's almost nothing compared to about an extra meter compared to the base. Rifled will help out. It gives you about 2.5 meters more. Not a huge difference, but pretty close to the cavalry, so you can kind of choose what makes the most sense there based on range. So now we get to the task force. You can see it's a 6% difference compared to what it was before. It was like 50%. So this is a huge nerf. And then we have the target spotlight and the ember sighting, which somehow increase your range. You can see right here by about 6% and 10%, which is relatively close to what we saw with the FFAR. So I wonder if that's standardized across all the weapons, that you're getting about a 3 to 5% increase on the regular spotlight, and then for the ember sighting it's about 10%, which is negligible on SMGs, but as you increase that range on rifles, it kind of does add an extra 3 or 4 or 5 meters here or there, depending on the weapon you're talking about. So straightforward stuff there. This was all the recoil stuff. It's just numbers. I'm going to scroll through that because that's not kind of all that important. It just represents a number for what we saw visually a little while ago. Now the hipfire here is pretty important, because sometimes people don't hipfire at all, and then sometimes people want a hipfire build, and it's important to know what are the best ways to get the best hipfire build. So if we go over here, we got the base, and then we got the red cell grip, striker grip, steady aim, SOF target. You can see all the different attachments here, and pretty much all these ones in green are helping that, and then all these ones in red are hurting it. So the no stock will hurt your hipfire spread by about 12.5%, combat stock same, and then the raider stock 26%. And you can see right here, they've actually modified pretty much all of these attachments. The red cell gives you a buff of 5%, whereas before it was nothing. We have striker grip buffed, nerfed the steady aim. It was helping you by a huge percentage before. Now it's a little bit marginal at 14%. They buffed the target finder, which had no benefit. Now it's 12.5. 5 milliwatt is up there. You got 18, almost 19% there. It was nerfed from 65%, but it's still the best in terms of actually helping you decrease that hipfire. They also nerfed the ember sight from 53% down to 16, so that's a huge knock there. And then they buffed the no stock, the combat stock, and the raider stock. They used to give you huge penalties, and they basically cut those penalties in half. So pretty straightforward there. If you are looking for the ultimate hipfire build, you don't care about recoil or anything like that, or movement or whatever, you can go with the striker grip, which is going to help on the undergrips. That's the best one there. It's 10% compared to the 5 or none. And then if you want to go with just the best for the laser, 5 milliwatt is going to be the best on the Mac-10. So now we go ahead and go to strafe speed. So I have the time it takes to travel specific distance, right about 9.5 meters, the speed at which it's traveled based off of that, and then the difference in the base speed. So you can see everything that on this list on the left is helping out with that. If you're looking just for the absolute best strafe speed, the task force somehow, some reason has strafe speed now by about 3.5%. The Tiger team actually helps. And then the combat stock is going to be faster than the raider stock. It's kind of the opposite on rifles. Not sure why that is, but that's just kind of how it works. And you can see that pretty much these top 4, the task force was buffed because it didn't have that before. Mounted flashlight, Tiger team, and tactical stock were all buffed in this area. So the tactical stock might be a good way because it doesn't really have any of those cons, but it'll allow you to get close to that strafe speed without that hipfire penalty. So this is kind of where it comes in. It's like you got to make the decisions on what works best for you and your individual play style. Then we come over here to reload. So now it's like, well, why are people using certain mags? If you have the base mag, no ammo equipped, it's 184 milliseconds to aim down sight from when you start that. 53 round will slow that down to 217. That's about an 18% slowdown. And then the 53 round speed mag brings you all the way up to 250 milliseconds, which is about 36% difference. And you can see the reload speed isn't really all that much faster. It's 2% faster. So you might as well go with the regular 53 round mag for that reason, since you're not really getting any kind of benefit to your actual reload, and it's penalizing your 8AS speed significantly. So that one's probably a universal attachment that every class setup should be the regular 53 round mag. Then we go ahead and go to the sprint to fire. There's a few different options here. Obviously people like running the no stock. The Raider stock is pretty comparable to that. And then when the wire stock is about 158 milliseconds. This one also has a 50 millisecond bolt delay, open bolt delay. So it might be worth it to run no stock or Raider stock to get that benefit. And you can see none of these were changed in that aspect. So if you use one of those for that, it's still going to work pretty well for those options. So with all that being said, now what is the best class setup? So the first, my preference, obviously we're going to go with the 53 round drum mag for the reasons that I just obviously mentioned. Then the underbarrel, I think the speed grip is going to be the best. And then for the muzzle, obviously we don't want to reduce our range considering there's not a lot of ways to really increase it. And this thing, you really need that range. And then this one, you could either go with the infantry compensator or the SOCOM eliminator, but I'm going to go with the SOCOM eliminator because of how well that combines with the SFOD speed grip. So those are the three base attachments. We're going to avoid the speed grips because they're working the opposite of they say they do, because they actually hurt your aim down sight speed. So we're not going to touch those. And then this kind of really comes down to preference. Some people go no stock, some people go combat stock. These are kind of the two options I would choose between. Personally, I like that extra strafe speed. Gives you a little bit more mobility in a gunfight. It doesn't really help with that sprint to fire, but personally, I think having a little bit faster movement still helps out and not having to destroy my hip fire in the process. I can counter that with the 5 milliwatt laser. And then there you go. That would be the basic class setup. If you don't want a laser, I would end up going with the reinforced heavy. Then this ends up being the other class setup. And then if you want this, but then you want a little bit, you know, just to go that way, you can go the no stock approach. Still going to hurt your hipfire spread, but this is probably about as good as it gets for the other attachments. Obviously you could experiment, but at least now you have the tools to understand which attachments you should be using for what particular build you're trying to accomplish. One little quick mention, if you're looking to go ahead and reference these stats at any point, I do have a link down in the description with the bullet velocities that'll kind of show you all of that stuff. I made a special tab on the document so you'll be able to find exactly what I was looking at right here. If you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, just double check, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.